Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world,
time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayla's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios on this Friday, and that means a visit from your favorite, MyJumpShot.com's Todd Leary. How are you, sir?
I am good. Got the mobile unit this morning.
Love it. Love it. It's always good to be mobile on a Friday.
Yep.
It's always good to be mobile
That's
on
right.
a Friday.
Yeah, really.
I saw that forecast, man. It's calling your name next week.
Yes, it is.
Calling my name, too. Let me tell you, I can promise you.
Yeah. Nothing is more fun than when the Big Ten tournament is in Indianapolis and the weather is really good. I mean, this is set up for one of the all-time great tournaments of the Big Ten that the Big Ten's put on. It's really set up for a good weekend in Indy.
Well, and you say that, and there couldn't be more truth to that, because while Michigan State is probably a favorite, they're not a dominant favorite. There's 5 teams that can beat them, probably. Or hell, 6. I mean, hell, Indiana beat them. And I'm not saying that would happen again, but it's a wide open Big Ten tournament. You don't have Purdue of the last couple of years with Zach Edey or Illinois.
Right. There's no standout favorite of it, right?
Michigan State did wrap up the Big Ten championship last night, though, with a win at Iowa. They are now 2 games up on Michigan, whom they finished the regular season with this weekend, but Michigan cannot catch up. Dusty shouldn't have signed that extension because he lost 3 out of his 4 games.
Yeah, they've struggled since that point. And yeah, you're right. The interesting thing about the Big Ten tournament right now is, usually analysts or the so-called experts give Tom Izzo's teams, I'd say, more credit than they deserve. Like a lot of times I think just because Tom Izzo's the coach, they tend to favor that team a little bit more than some others. And that's rightfully so. He's earned that, over the years in his Hall of Fame career. And this year, I think it's the opposite. I fall into that category. I don't, just because they struggle to score the basketball, which they've done better at in the last few games. I just don't give them the credit. And if you polled, those so-called experts and said, who would you pick to win the Big Ten? I don't think very many of them are going to pick Michigan State. Like people are just, a lot of us are just not giving them the credit. And I still am not. Like, they proved it last night, a big win. They could have easily gotten beat by Iowa. That was a kind of a trap game.
For a good part of that game.
Yeah. Oh, they were down by 10, midway through the second half. And they just did what Michigan State does. And they just grinded you to the point where you had a little bit of a lull at the wrong time, and they took advantage of it. And that's, this Michigan State team, even though they're going to win the Big Ten, outright, this is not a team that's dead, or I doubt very many people or analysts are picking to win the Big Ten. And just because they don't have the superstar that they normally have, they don't have that one alpha guy that you point at that, is one of the best players in the league. They don't have any of that this year. This is just a Tom Izzo, butte that he's put out there. I said it the other day, and I've always given Coach Knight credit for the 1988 Big Ten championship I think that was the best, and I wasn't there then. That was the year before I came in. That was the best coaching job. If you look at that roster and who that team beat in the Big Ten, like you go look at all of those, the rosters on all those teams in the Big Ten that Indiana beat, and to win the Big Ten that year, I've always said is the best coaching job anyone's done in the NCAA ever. And honestly, I don't think it's quite the same because I don't think the other rosters are quite as strong as what they were back in 1988. But I think this is the next closest pure, outright great coaching job someone has done with a team since 1988.
Well, you say that, but it's kind of come back around, like you're saying, because but those days we had seniors, juniors, and seniors. Teams were full of them, and then here for the last several years, it's just been a youth movement. Guys get out; they're gone to the NBA as soon as they can. But now with NIL, that has changed that back. Boy, you see a ton of seniors everywhere. Hell, you see grad students all over the place. So
6, 7, not just seniors, 6-year seniors, 7th-year seniors.
Yes.
Even. Heck, doesn't
guys
Minnesota have an 8th-year senior?
They're staying as long as they can stay now. It's a different deal. So, but that makes for better college basketball, in my opinion, because you've got better, more mature players. So this could be, I'd say it could be a hell of a tournament, and I think that it will be the NCAA tournament, but I don't know how you go against the SEC, but I don't want to shortchange the Big Ten tournament just yet. Coming up next week, Indiana has a final game against Ohio State. I think that they have to win that game to determine their own NCAA fate. And if they win that game, I'm not sure where they'll end up being seeded. If they're an 8 seed, they get a bye, which would make their first game tougher than if they don't get a bye, because they would be the higher seed playing a lower seeded team. That would give them the win in the Big Ten tournament they might need, and then they can go on and lose that next game to a higher seeded team. So they may be better off if they were the lower seeded team in the Big Ten tournament, but I don't think it's going to work out that way. Regardless, I think they have to beat Ohio State.
I think that's what it comes down to. I think this has become, Michigan State winning last night and clinching the Big Ten, that kind of made an anticlimactic finish for that Michigan State game. But that's not the case for Indiana and a couple of other teams as well. Like the reason why this should be just one battle, heck of a battle in a basketball game, is because Ohio State, I think, sits in almost exactly the same position as Indiana. I think they both really know and understand they need to win this game. And the winner of this game is most likely in the NCAA tournament. No matter what happens in the Big Ten tournament, the winner of this game is most likely in. And, that just says all the marbles are on the table for this game, and you have got to do everything you can possibly do to win this game. It's kind of come down to a one-game play-in game, in my opinion. I could be wrong. The committee, that's where I think the committee kind of sees it too. That's just not my opinion. I'm kind of going off of what I've seen, what they're predicting, last 4 in and first 4 out and those things. But yeah, it's a must-win game if you want to feel pretty comfortable, a week from now on that Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that winning the game should put Indiana in itself. But like I said, going in and losing, if they were to do that and lose their first Big Ten tournament game, depending on who it's against, I think is a different.
It could. You're right. It could definitely factor into it. But you know what? But
I think I agree with you. If they win this game, they should be in, because as of right now, most analysts have them in at like an 11. So this should secure that spot.
Yeah, it sure looks that way, but it looks the same way for Ohio State to me. Like
yes.
When you look at them, like it looks pretty much the same way. I don't think if Indiana loses this game and loses the first game of the Big Ten tournament, they would be in. I don't think Ohio State, if they lose this game and lose the first game of the Big Ten tournament, I don't think they would be in either. So I think they're both kind of in the position of a must win.
All in, baby. Everybody's all in, pushing the chips in.
That's what I said. Everything you can possibly do. I don't care if you got to play a zone. I don't care if you got to play a box and one. It doesn't matter. You got to figure out a way to win this game. And Indiana playing at home, historically on senior days, they've had decent success. So, I mean, they've got things in their favor. You feel much better needing to win this game playing at home than you would on the road. So Indiana's got a bit of an advantage, but I think everybody in the league's proven that that's no guarantee this year.
I agree with you 1,000%. The fact that Indiana is just even in this position is shocking to me.
It is great. Yeah, it really is great.
But they put themselves in position. They played a lot better going down the stretch. Couldn't get it done, against Oregon, but they sneakily, I think they'll get another chance against the Ducks in the Big Ten tournament. We'll certainly see. But they've got to take care of business on Saturday. They've been playing a lot better. It seems. Mgbako, though, you've talked about how he has to be engaged in the offense for Indiana to reach their ceiling. And, man, he has been about as inconsistent on his team as anybody has this year.
He's been like the Indiana weather. Like, it's hard to predict what you're going to get out of him. And, one day when you see it might be one way, you think things are going to go one way, it just turns around and you just don't know what to expect. What you said it perfectly. Like, you don't know what to expect out of him. And I firmly believe Indiana is at its best when Mgbako is playing, it is a big part and has his better games. I honestly feel like their ceiling, in order to beat the really good teams, they have got to have Mgbako pretty consistently playing well. And you know what? He struggled a little bit, especially with consistency. And so it's almost like a new season. I know this game Saturday is not, but once you get into the Big Ten tournament, it's almost like a new season. You get a fresh start. And hopefully that's how he looks at it and takes it. And hopefully they can go from there. And, he just used it as a springboard to get off to a good start going through the tournament.
Well, you're the expert on the X's and O's, and it appears that Indiana has some semblance of an offense going with Luke Goody starting in the lineup now and just the one big, but yet Mgbako just doesn't seem to find his spot, his niche in what they're trying to do. And again, if his first shot doesn't go down, and you've always said that, man, he should just take it to the bucket and get some confidence going. The other night, he did nothing in the first half, 8 points in the second half. It was weird. He came out and got engaged in that second half, but it was too little too late. But, man, I don't know. It just seems like he's not engaged in what they're doing.
Yeah, and look, this you can get into basketball coaching 101 and different coaches will tell you how to handle these things in different ways. But every player is not coached the same way, and every player doesn't respond to coaching. And some players respond better to criticism and yelling and screaming, and some don't. Some don't respond well to that. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying, like, you have to coach different players in different ways. And I do believe, just from the outside looking in, Mgbako is a guy that you need to – coddle's not the right word. I just don't really know how else to say it. You need to massage his mental game through so that he's confident. And no matter if he misses 12 shots in a row, Mgbako is one of the best shooters in the country. And no matter how he starts, you've got to make him confident in whatever way possible. And, when he misses 3 in a row, I'd run the next 3 plays for him. And I would get him so that he understands he is, he's important. And yeah, like Brian's comment, if he had a motor, I don't like that comment. It almost sounds like he doesn't play hard. I'm not sure he quite understands how to play hard yet. A lot of guys think they play hard and they just – but I know what you're saying, Brian. I agree with you 100%. His physical attributes, he's a lottery pick. He is an NBA all-star. When you're 6'9" and you can shoot it the way he does, he's an all-star in the NBA. But not the way that he plays. And so
is he just a late bloomer? I hate to say late bloomer, but it's just like you just said, he has not grasped what he has to do. Working hard is when you're in high school, boy, you think you're working hard. You get up to the counter, like, oh crap.
Right.
And then you move up to another level, oh crap again. It continues to ratchet up. And some people have the self-discipline to do that. Others need to be pushed, but they're coachable and they take that. Yeah, like I said, I don't know. It's just, you can see he just doesn't seem, I don't know what it is. Because you can see the talent is there. My gosh, he's smooth. It's easy. He doesn't look like he's working as hard as he probably is, but that's part of his ability.
Yeah, you are. I mean, so many things that you said are right on. Like he's just different, and I will always go back to, some players respond to some types of coaching, and other players respond better to others. And I don't feel like. And look, I'm not disparaging the coaching staff. I'm not saying they're not doing their job. I'm saying I believe Mackenzie Mgbako is one of those players you have to coach a little bit different. And when you look at, I don't feel like they coach him different. I feel like, they're not going to give him special treatment, and that's the way they're going to go. And I don't think that's accurate. I do think some players need special treatment. We had players on our team, Coach Knight, knew which players not to, just ground your heel on into the ground. Like he knew
some guys can take it, some guys can't.
That's the very simple way of putting it. Some guys handle it better than others. And I don't feel like Mackenzie is a guy that responds as well to lack of confidence. And so he's a guy, you tell him as the assistant coach sitting over there, you tell Mackenzie Mgbako every time down the floor, if you're open, shoot it. I don't care if you miss 12 in a row. It doesn't matter. If you're open, shoot it. And, that's the Mackenzie Mgbako we need in the Big Ten tournament and throughout the NCAA tournament if they're fortunate enough to get there.
And Indiana has gone with a much smaller rotation down this line. I mean, Bryson Tucker is in the witness protection program now, has not been seen or heard from in quite some time. Do not know what the situation is there. But that one, he seems to be off the table. But it's an 8-man rotation, very, very tight. And that's it. That's what you're going to see. So Indiana has to get production from those guys, all 8 of them. If somebody has a bad night, it really affects the team when you have that small of a rotation because you have that few of opportunities. A lot of these other teams I'm seeing, they're running 9-10 guys right now. Maybe it's because of the time of the year or trying to stay fresher. I'm not sure, but boy, Indiana's has really shrunk, which they always get a little smaller, but 8-man rotation is pretty tight.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I think that fits. This is one of the things I think that has translated from the NBA coaching to where Mike Woodson is now. And I don't disagree with it. I think it happens, with all coaches. When you get down to the end of the year, your rotation does tighten up a little bit. And sometimes it's not, sometimes it's not necessarily a situation of you're intentionally doing it. I think you just feel more comfortable with guys that are making plays. And I'll tell you, it's not an easy job being a guy that comes in off the bench and needing to create, you're not coming in there to stop the bleeding. You're coming in there to create stuff and make stuff happen. And good stuff, obviously. And it's not an easy job. And so when you don't come in and take advantage of that opportunity, and you can't just go in and not make mistakes, you got to go in and produce. And when you're able to do that, you get more playing time. You stay on the floor. It's easier for a coach to leave you on there. Otherwise, you are literally just coming in to give somebody a breather. And, we need guys that come in off the bench and produce. And when Bryson Tucker does that, I think he plays more. But Kanan Carlisle is a good example of this. He's a guy
that's the very name I was going to bring up next.
I think he was buried on the bench and probably not going to see a whole lot more playing time. But he's played well when he's come in and produced, and so he's earned a little bit more playing time each game and a little bit more trust. And I think he's played himself into that rotation. Because I don't think he was a part of the rotation. I think he and Bryson Tucker were probably about the same boat in that. And he's been more productive when he's come in. And so it's a tough situation because, those are talented players over there. Bryson Tucker was a 5-star player sitting over there. And I think the benefit for Indiana fans this season is Mike Woodson isn't coaching, looking at what he's going to do next year. I think he's all chips on the table, and he doesn't need to make guys happy so they come back for next year. I think the cupboard's going to be pretty bare when this season is over. and there's going to be a lot of guys, if they don't transfer, they're going to look at their options, and they're going to see what's out there. And whoever that new coach is going to he's got his hands full, and he's got his work cut out for him.
I will say this,
building a roster.
Any of those guys looking to leave, they're probably going to take a pay cut.
Oh, you know that for sure.
So that may dissuade some of those guys, because they could maybe stay here and say, "Hey, I'll take the same deal. I'm good with the same deal," because they can't get that anywhere else.
It's not a 4-year deal though. Like, you don't come in and sign a deal. That's one of the things we're learning about the new NIL and NCAA situation is these guys, just because you made X number of dollars last year, especially with a new coach coming in, they're not required to honor you anything. And a lot of people don't understand this, and I've educated people on this a lot over the years. When you commit and go play at a school, it's a 1-year deal. Like, the school does not have to renew your scholarship every year. They do not, back before NIL and money, and we're talking about these guys' contracts, like, schools are not required to renew your scholarship every year.
Now, doesn't Indiana though have the Fred Glass student athlete Bill of Rights thing, which is why Tim Priller, they couldn't get rid of Tim Priller. I think he was here for 4 years.
Now look, they try to make a commitment to the athletes, and very seldom do you see, unless there's a new coach come in, very seldom do you see a player not get his scholarship renewed. But there are so many other factors that they can put involved. Like, when you're not welcome and not wanted, you need to go find somewhere else to go. And right now, the scholarships are probably the last thing these guys are worried about the school renewing. Like, they're worried about their NIL contracts renewing. And you're right. The money that has been there for Indiana, but we all know this. Look, it's common information that's been out there. Leal and Galloway were given more money than they could have gotten at any other school anywhere. Like, maybe that's not entirely true, but it's pretty close. Like,
I'd say that is exactly true.
Yeah, they were not highly sought after from a transfer portal perspective, and in NIL money. There's a lot of teams that would love to have them, but not and be willing to pay them the amount of money Indiana paid them. And so that's actually a big chunk of change that's sitting there that for sure. There's not going to be, hey, we're going to run it back at the speeches tomorrow. Like, there is no running it back. Like, they've run it into the ground. Like, they're gone. We all know that. And so, this is the perfect opportunity to everybody stand up, cheer really hard. These are 2 Indiana kids that played. They did everything I feel like they could for Indiana University. Yeah, they made some money off of it. That's the nature of the beast right now. They didn't create the beast. They just are advantageous in how they use the system. And that's to their benefit. Everyone would have done exactly what they did. So, it's one of those scenarios. You got to look at next year's roster. You can't guarantee one single player is going to be back on this roster for next year. There might be 3 or 4, but we know for certain there are a bunch of them that are going to be gone just based on graduation.
Yeah, I look through the roster all the time, and I ask myself, who do I expect back off of this? And I'm like, that is a very, very small list. The only person I'm confident of that will be on the Indiana roster next year is Trent Sisley. That's probably the only one I have complete confidence of that he'll be.
You're
in
right
there.
on the money. You use Rice and Carlisle as perfect examples. Those guys, have they loved their year at Indiana? I would doubt that they would come out of that and say, yes, it's been just an awesome, great situation. But the money, they're not going to get that kind of money. I mean, there might be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 other schools that would be willing to offer them something close to that, but not very many. And so, that's where you look at guys like that and you're like, I mean, will they stick around with a new coach?
Well, and that's a good reason. That gives Indiana an advantage of sorts, although it would cost them more money. It kind of I don't want to say forces, but it really suggests you should stay here because you're going to lose some serious change by doing so. And the House settlement, which is expected to be approved next month, will kick in, which means Indiana will have that set dollars to put towards athletics, 75% of which will go towards football, 20% will probably go towards basketball, and then like 5% towards everything else. So they're going to have more money because everything they've done so far has been NIL. This is going to be revenue sharing. So it will give them the chance to continue to make probably whatever they're making now here, but I don't think that they would get that if they left. Like, I agree with you. Todd Leary, the shot father, with us from myjumpshot.com. Hey, if you have kids, no kids, are a kid, or play in a league, whatever, you want to improve your basketball fundamentals, great gift, birthday, whatever coming up, graduation gift, think of all kinds of reasons to give it, but you don't need a reason. It's the joy of playing basketball. Reach out to myjumpshot.com. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Friday, and not a better day to have shot father Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com with us. To be back here in just a second, but make sure you get out, enjoy high school basketball going on, people. Get out, enjoy a sectional game tonight. I know someone mentioned Jeffersonville playing with Sharon Wilkerson down there, trying to get back to the state finals. I don't know. Are the Fighting Todd Leary still at it?
You know what? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I haven't seen Lawrence Lord up. I'm not sure if what they've got going this year, how good they are. But
yeah, they're decent. I mean, they're ranked.
Fishers is the team.
Fishers has got a little dynasty. They got a small dynasty going on right now.
I'm telling you. And I didn't know Jason Gardner Jr. was on there. And the funny thing is, Jalen Harrelson used to be on that team.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Before they won the state championship was on that team. So yeah, that's how good they could have been. But you know what? Like, yeah, you mentioned Gardner. Like, you want to see somebody on skates going up and down the court. That dude is fast as lightning. Like, with the basketball, that guy is. I mean, he's special. He's good. And I think he's the only sophomore or junior? Sophomore, maybe? Like, he's got a couple more years to go. So it'll be tough to pry him out of the hands of Arizona.
I was getting ready to say, and Indiana has no shot at him.
Nope. Well, you don't know that with the coaching change. Everything's
that's true. You know what? Hey, we've seen
his dad might be an assistant at Indiana before it's all over.
I was just getting ready to say we have seen that happen before. Yep. Derek Smith, all that's it happens many times. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Speaking of the next coach, it's we're getting closer, but I still think we're.
Where's the rumor mill this week? Where are we at this week?
It's on fire. It is on fire. Apparently, a rumor got started that Indiana has basically reconsidered not looking at Chris Beard, and we're looking at him and going to consider him, and this, that, and the other thing. There's been no confirmation of that at all, and I'm not buying into it.
So hold on, what's the rumor? The rumor is they are looking at him or not looking at him? What's the rumor?
There has been some kind of reconsideration. Now, I'm not saying that could not be true, because I don't know what the back-channeling conversations have been like with the people that they are actively looking at, which we know that there's probably a list 5 or 6 deep at least, and you start gauging interest. Now, most guys are probably not going to tell you no for 2 reasons. A, they're probably interested. But B, even if they're not going to say no, because they want their current school or employer to think that you're possibly going, so you can get that Dusty May extension and raise, which I don't blame them. So I'm not buying into that rumor personally. I don't think that much has changed, although I think more is being made of that situation that he was involved in, because I think there's a lot that people don't know. They're going off of certain things right off the police report. Well, I think if you've ever had an accident.
Hey, you're talking to the right guy here.
No, I was going to say, if you've ever even had an accident,
You've ever been accused of anything, sometimes that can pile up and the accusations can become much bigger than what it's intended to be.
Were.
But yeah.
They like to pile on things.
Look, hey, here's what we all know. We're all human beings. We all understand that, and if you have been through this or know someone that has been through this, you understand. Like sometimes,
you know what?
I do, Todd,
and you know him
the whole
too.
Story. Yeah,
but there's somebody that I don't even want to name him as frequently as I talk about him, but it's because I have so much respect for him for what he has done, because he has done a 180. I mean, you're one of those people, but I'm talking about someone who had a situation like this that was closer to a domestic situation. And I'll go ahead and say it. It was Sharon Wickerson. I mean, Sharon had some instance way back in the day.
Sure.
But he has done a 180 with his life. He is one of the greatest. If you have a kid, you want him teaching or coaching your kid. He will lead boys into men. He has turned his life completely around. When you talk to him, you're talking to someone who has the greatest respect for you and everyone else he's talking to. Mm-hmm. You are the most important person that he's talking to when you're talking to him. I've just never seen a transformation. So because of that very thing, I'm like, you can't rule people out. I'm sorry. You can't just discard them and not know everything. So if it were true, I think it would be great for Indiana fans. But
look, you and I both know, Jim, there's people that would not like it if he was hired. But we should all agree with this statement. We don't know. The only people that know the real details of what happened and what went on and how bad was it or was it not that bad? Like, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm saying the only people that know that are the people that were involved and were there. And the coach, the somehow he got vetted through that process and was hired at a major Division I college basketball program after that. So we all have to assume, I'm guessing, that maybe it was blown up bigger than what it was, than it should have been. Because he's got another job already. He's not sitting home on his couch or at ESPN, not coaching. Like, he has been vetted through the hiring process and hired. And I'm using him as an example, but here's the difficulty of all of this. And Indiana kind of creates that difficulty on their own. They try to keep everything so close to the vest and tight-lipped, all the cliche terms you want to use. They try to keep everything in-house and not give out any information. So it's our jobs. It's our right. It's what we, as fans, it's our right to be able to speculate and guess and make rumors up because they don't give us information. They don't tell us. And I'm not necessarily saying they should. I think they should be a little freer with more information than what they are, but I'm not saying they need to tell us exactly the process and where they're at and all that every morning. They don't need to give us a daily update. But it'd be nice. It'd be nice to understand where they're at and why certain guys. We're never going to know if Chris Beard is not hired. We're never going to really know. The only people that are going to know are Dolson and Witten and those people on the board are going to know, how far down the road did they really get with him? Where was that? Did they consider him? Did they not consider him? Was his past a big factor in it? Like, they're not going to come out and say, well, this is why we didn't hire Chris Beard. This is why we didn't hire blank. They're not going to tell us that. So even after the fact, we're not going to know why or why not. And so we just have to understand that and accept it and deal with what we can deal with. And I will say, because he was hired at another school, I don't think that background should be an issue. It's obviously been fixed, corrected, and understood. Like, he might be on the other side of it coming out. We don't know what it was like. So at the end of all of that long rant, I'll just say, like, Indiana's going to keep it close to themselves, but at the same time, there are some coaches out there. I'm going to throw. I don't know Chris Beard, but I've kind of advocated for him on your show for years. I like watching his teams play.
Oh,
He always pays tribute to Coach Knight all the time. I love that. I love the fact that his basketball life one of the people that he admires is Coach Knight. That side, Coach Knight is a basketball wizard, so I like that side of it. But coaches can't outwardly go out and say, oh yeah, I want, hey, make sure Indiana knows I'm interested in that job. Their agents can. Their agents do that stuff, but we're never going to know that. Those agents would get fired so fast if they started leaking certain information. So, we're not going to know who's reaching out wanting the job and who Indiana's reaching out to wanting to look at taking the job. But one thing we're all going to agree on as Indiana fans, or if you're a Purdue fan, you hate it, but it's just a fact, is, this is a sought after job. There's probably not 10 coaches across the country that you can name that if they were offered this job, they wouldn't take it. And that's just a fact, especially because the money's going to be there and the NIL backing is probably the most significant thing a coach needs to look at when he comes in right now into a program is, what do I have to work with? What do I have to deal with? And Indiana has a lot to work with and a lot to do. A lot to give them.
Rudy says the ironic thing is that this is from a school that had Bob Knight as their coach for, it was actually 29 years. But what part of it is, but part of it is they learned. They realized after the fact that, yes, they were winning at the highest level, but underneath of that was a storm going on that they kind of ignored and allowed to grow. And so they didn't balance it well. And they don't, I understand not wanting to get in that situation again. They've got a lawsuit going on right now. So it's not like it's just that easy. Then that no matter what, there will be, let's say they hired Chris Beard. Oh man, I was watching, just happened to be the 30 for 30 on the Duke lacrosse team last night. And there cannot be a more perfect example. There is not a person listening. There is not a person that out there, people, that did not think those guys were freaking guilty as hell when that was going on, only for it to turn out that they were innocent, and it was a big lie. You don't know. But
I'm telling you, you don't know if you weren't there. Like that. Hey, we all have to understand. You are right on the money. Like, you can use that as one example. We could sit here all day long and pull out example after example. But on the flip side of that, I'm not saying the bad part of what happens in a situation like that is there are victims. There are people who didn't make it up. There are people who bad stuff has happened to. And now it becomes harder for them to have to prove that something really happened or something, whatever it was. Like, yeah, so those scenarios just put, that slightest bit of doubt in your mind as to whether, certain things are, we don't know what happened with, I know your point in all of that was pointing back at Chris Beard's situation that he happened. And I'll just continue to go back and say, none of us know or are ever going to know what really happened. Was it as bad as we thought? We're all adults. We're all human beings. We've all been in circumstances we wish we weren't involved in and handled things differently than we wish we could go back and change it and do it differently. That's part of growing and being a better human. And you know what? We don't know where he's at today. He might be worse today. He might go to church 8 times a week. Like, who knows? Like, it's just a scenario. Like, we're going to speculate because that's our jobs and that's what we do. And it's fun and we get to talk about it. And, what else are we going to talk about on, March 7th at 9 a.m? I mean, we get to talk about Indiana basketball and that's fun. And so, let's keep it that way. And let's speculate in a good way as to who it might be, not look at all the reasons why we shouldn't hire someone. I'll be the first one to tell you, I think the leader in the clubhouse right now would not be my first pick, but I'll support the heck out of it if it happens that way.
Who do you think that is? Ben McCollum?
Mick Cronin.
Do you really?
I really do. I think Mick Cronin, I think he checks.
And I do not doubt that whatsoever. I say that with a little, because I don't have a dog in the fight, but I don't know. He's a winner. He wins. I just don't. I'm not getting the.
I say that
I'm not
is because he checks all the.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he's definitely one of the top candidates. The good thing is there are candidates this time. It wasn't like that last time.
Right.
You've got Ben McCollum. You've got Mick Cronin. You've got Brad Brownell, if you want to go down that route. You've got TJ Otzelberger. Scott Drew has not been eliminated yet.
Jim, it's going to be much easier for you to name the people that are not candidates. Because there's probably, like I said a few minutes ago, there's probably only 10 maybe guys. There's probably only 10 names you could say. Like, I'll give you an example. Tom Izzo, Matt Painter. Like, those guys are not – they're at their destination schools. They're at the school. Mark Pope, not leaving Kentucky. He would never want to leave Kentucky. And so there's probably 10 of those guys across the country. Outside of that, everyone is fair game. Every single coach in the country. And the reason I say I think Mick Cronin checks almost all of the boxes from the standpoint of what he's accomplished and what he's done and where he's been and those types of things, what he needs to do when he comes in here. I think he's checked all those boxes. I don't particularly love the style of play that they have. But his job isn't to come in here and, have a style of play that we like. His job is to come in here and win. And if he comes in here and wins, that's just the way that it is. And I think he checks those boxes without having, I can tell by your reaction, he's not your number one pick. I'll tell you, he's not my number one pick. But I don't know him from Adam. If I sat down and had lunch with him, he might be my number one pick. He might be your number one pick. I don't know the guy at all, so it's really difficult for me to give much more than just an analytical view of what he's accomplished. And you're not going to rule him out based on what he's accomplished because he's put himself in that conversation. And that's why I think he's where it is. But again, he's not the sexiest hire out there, but he's sure not one you're going to be able to poke a bunch of holes in.
Well, he's not exactly sexy himself, but that's okay. Just win, baby. Just win. Hey, brother, I hope you have a great weekend, safe and enjoyable, and looking forward to those 70-degree days coming at you.
Boy, you can't even imagine. I'm going to have every window in the house open.
Todd Leary from MyJumpShot.com. We appreciate you, brother.
See you, brother.
Hello, sports fans. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notifications toggle so you never miss a thing. All of our content up here every day. Looking forward to it. Thank you, and we'll see you on the radio.